Welcome to SBR Sports Picks. I'm Peter Loshak. We're talking with Ian Cameron, taking a look at the opening lines for Major League Baseball for the games of Wednesday, May 18th. Ian Cameron, the first game that jumps out at me is Houston and the White Sox, right? We've got Pfister and Latos on the mound, and Latos, had a somewhat surprising start to the season this year where he was good. Everyone was expecting him to get crushed. Last three starts were pretty ugly. He started to get crushed in the ways and to struggle in the ways that people were expecting. Last start, no strikeouts, 5 walks. That is super ugly. And then Pfister, we know his deal, decent at times, but usually hittable, sometimes crushable, and it's a relatively low total for the opener, 8.5. I jumped all over that one. Over 8.5, Pfister and Latos. Is that an obvious play, Ian Cameron?
You know what? It probably is the way I'd lean in this particular game without question. I mean, we knew there was a correction coming with Matt Latos based on the way he started the season. Just one of those guys where when you see him with the peripheral numbers that he had that were so off, the ERA, the hits allowed, the runs allowed, it tells you right away. Balls are just finding gloves right now in the outfield. He was getting hit hard. It's just that, it was line drives. They were just hitting the right spot where a left fielder, center fielder, right fielder was right there at the right time, right place to be able to pick it off, and it turned into a loud, hard fly ball out instead of what could have been a double or triple in a lot of cases. But now we're seeing the baseball luck, that Russian roulette wheel, I guess you could say. It's coming back around now for Matt Latos. Now all of a sudden those loud, thunderous line drives that he's given up, they are falling for hits. And as a result, we've seen a correction in terms of Matt Latos and his recent starts, where now the runs are starting to pile up. He's allowed 4 runs or more now in 3 straight starts against Baltimore, Minnesota, and Texas. And as you mentioned, the control has been an issue for him. He's had 8 walks, 6 strikeouts in his last 3 starts. That's not a ratio that anyone wants to see in terms of a pitch looking at a pitcher to bet on. And that's definitely been an issue for Matt Latos. He has pitched better here at the Cell, a little bit more comfortable. White Sox are 3-0 in Matt Latos' 3 home starts this season at U.S. Cellular Field, a 2.60 ERA, but still, it's a guy that right now is certainly on the regression warpath, I guess you could say right now. But on the flip side, Doug Fister's not a guy that I've had a lot of trust with this season. Has been better lately, though, and actually there are some good signs that I do see from Doug Fister in his last 3 starts. A 2.7 ERA. The walks are down. He's had just 3 walks. In those 3 starts, 11 strikeouts, 6 runs on 16 hits as well during that span. In fact, Doug Fister, since getting roughed up back in April against Kansas City, he's now had 5 starts in a row where he's allowed 3 runs or less. So he has indeed shown signs of improvement. You've got one guy maybe going up a bit, Doug Fister, one guy obviously on the way down here in Matt Latos. That being said, Houston, their bullpen has been a major disappointment this season. And Pfister, to me, when you look at what he's done against the Chicago White Sox, he's been, a little bit hittable at times. This is a lineup that's had some success with Pfister in the past. So he may be able to give up some runs here against the White Sox in this one. I would definitely lean over the total in this game and maybe lean a little bit toward Houston. I don't want to support Houston on the road, but from a side perspective right now, there could be a little bit more of a buy sign on Doug Fister at the moment than there is on Matt Latos.
Okay, sounds good. Houston opened as a small underdog, about plus 110. And then we have Shelby Miller making another start, one of the handful of top-notch auto fades, at least in my opinion, in terms of starting pitchers in the majors right now. He's going to be at home against the Yankees. The Yankees, an offense that can be sluggish at times, not necessarily a team that you want to jump on quickly without at least giving it a second thought. But I love to auto fade Shelby Miller. He opened as a small home underdog, plus 110 to 115 market wide. Eovaldi on the other side, a guy who can throw 100 miles an hour, but doesn't necessarily get lights out results overall in his starts. Still a decent starter, though. What's your take on the Yankees as a small road favorite at Arizona?
You know what? Shelby Miller, to me, if you look at that last start against San Francisco, you talk about a tightrope act by Shelby Miller. I mean, San Francisco had Miller on the ropes 10 times, it seemed, in that game. I mean, 3 runs on 7 hits and 5.2 innings is going to show on his stat line, but I think San Francisco hit into 2 or 3 double plays in that start and really let Shelby Miller off the hook in what could have been a very, very rough outing again for him. And again, the strikeouts, they've gone down in each of his last 3 starts. The walks are still a bit of an issue. issue. He's been a little bit better. He's gone from 5 and 4 walks to 2 walks now in each of his last couple of starts. A little bit better, but it's still not great by any stretch of the imagination from Shelby Miller. And it's just a guy that I have a very, very tough time getting supporting right now and finding a reason to bet on. And now he's going to be taking on a New York Yankees team that, again, offensively can be a little bit spotty. I mean, look at what the Yankees did yesterday against Robbie Ray. He was a guy that had been struggling, yet they only scored 2 runs against him and a 12-2 loss. So the Yankees offense just remains a bit of an issue for them. They haven't been able to get on that big-time surge yet and be able to really start hitting the baseball collectively as a team. And we've talked about Nathan Eovaldi as well in the past, a guy that's got an electric arm but really hasn't been able to harness it at a consistent rate. 4.85 ERA in his last 3 starts, a 5.5 ERA where he's allowed 11 runs on 24 hits in 18 innings, 3 home runs. The gopher ball has been a bit of an issue for Nathan Eovaldi. He's given up a home run in each of his last 3 starts. And when at Chase Field, especially if the roof is open in this game, that could be a little bit of trouble for him. This is a game that more than from a side perspective, may look to play over the total. That being said, I'm looking at the total in this game, 9.5. There's been an adjustment made toward the struggles of Shelby Miller, the inconsistency of Nathan Eovaldi, and the fact that Arizona, especially at this time of the year at Chase Field, the roof seems to be open more often than not. So 9.5 to me, not great value. That being said, would still lean up and over the total here.
Okay, and then there's a second bet that I made on the opening line. We'll see what you have to say about that. And it's in the second game of the Boston KC doubleheader tomorrow. Price and Volquez, Edinson Volquez, are slated to start. And of course, we don't know. Well, obviously, we don't know what's going to happen to the game that goes tonight on Tuesday. We don't know what will happen in Game 1 that goes in the day on Wednesday. But my sense is, first of all, Edinson Volquez, a little bit of an inconsistent guy who struggles with control, but he's been lights out at home so far this year. And definitely, even though he does have some issues, not a perfect starter by any means, definitely getting results at home at least. And David Price, we know that he made some mechanical adjustments that did pay big dividends for at least one start at home at Fenway in his last start. And here he's going to get an easier assignment, right, at KC, more of a pitcher-friendly park against the KC lineup, which is not fearsome at the moment. And I took a shot with the under 7.5. I bet it at minus 123. That was the opening line that I saw. Again, we don't know what's going to happen with Game 1 tomorrow. We don't know exactly who's going to be in the lineups here for Game 2. But my sense is that pitchers duel in Game 2 and that the under might have some value. What do you think?
Yeah, to me, from a totals perspective, I'm steering clear, at least until right before game time. Right. I'd like to see what the lineups are. I'd like to see what the bullpen scenario is for both of these teams coming off Game 1 when it'll be Stephen Wright taking on Ian Kennedy. I'm not convinced those are 2 guys that are going to pitch deep into that afternoon game tomorrow. So if that's the case, you have some fatigued bullpens, some overused, some taxed bullpens maybe going into that nightcap between the Red Sox and Royals. That's definitely something you want to be aware of. If you're going to bet second games of these day-night doubleheaders in Major League Baseball, the bullpen status of these teams that play these night games after a daytime game, got to pay attention to them, because there's going to be teams often that, they use up their bullpen from the night before, from the day game, and then you've got a bunch of arms that are either unavailable or likely not going to throw a ton in the night game. So you've got to be aware of the bullpen situations for both of these teams. We talked about David Price because this was a game that was originally going to pitch Tuesday, but got postponed the Monday game, and it pushed David Price's start back to Wednesday night. We talked about how he made the mechanical adjustment, and that Dustin Pedroia, of all people, the guy that came forward saying he needed to make this adjustment. But David Price, it worked for him. I mean, he had 1 walk, 12 strikeouts, 1 run allowed, pitched into the 7th inning of his last start against Houston following the adjustments he made with his delivery. It worked. Now the question is, can he back it up? Can he follow it up? I'm not ready to go out there and lay minus 137 to see if David Price is going to be able to back it up. That's for sure. But there's no denying that the adjustments he made worked wonders against Houston at Fenway Park in his last outing. We'll see if he can carry it over here. And if it does, and he pitches just as well here, he could be a guy that maybe we can endorse moving forward. As for Edinson Volquez, it's a guy that's cooled off after a hot start to the season. He's been a little bit more inconsistent, a little bit more hittable in his more recent starts. And that could be a problem here facing this Boston team. In theory, Peter, the under... in theory, right now with the under, Boston's just not a team I'm looking to bet under the total right now. With their lineup, the way they are hitting right now, That would be my concern. I mean, I see Boston totals of 7, 7.5. I'm totally scared off any sort of underplay right now. I mean, Boston's lineup, they're lethal, 1 through 9. They're all in great form. You see every member of that Red Sox rotation is hitting very well, in great current form offensively. So you get these totals of 7, 7.5. Red Sox are an offense right now that can come close to or exceed totals of that range by themselves. So a little bit leery of that under, but if you do play it, Peter, I wish you the best of luck and hope you cash it.
All right. Thanks, Ian. Great points. Thanks for the insights. There's some interesting stuff on the rest of the card for Wednesday, May 18th. Nothing as yet that's jumping out at me as something I'm definitely going to be attracted to. What else do you think is interesting you'd like to bring to our attention for possible betting value tomorrow?
Well, the one I was going to talk about is that same series, but the daytime game between those two teams, Boston and Kansas City. Stephen Wright finally ran into a bit of a rough outing against Houston last time out. I'm willing to forgive him for that because before that he had pitched very, very well. He had allowed 2 runs or less in each of his first 6 starts. I think he has the chance to bounce back here. He is allowing more fly balls this year. His ground ball rate for Stephen Wright, the Boston knuckleballer, down from 43% last year to 40.7% this year. That's not totally atypical of knuckleballers. Obviously, they're going to be pitchers that induce a lot of fly balls. That's been the case for him. But what I do like to see from Stephen Wright, and what has been impressive, is that his home runs per fly ball percentage, that's gone way down. It was 12.2% last year. Now just 4.5% of every fly ball hit against Stephen Wright is leaving the ballpark. So he's doing a better job keeping the ball in the park, even though he's giving up more fly balls. So that's definitely a positive for Stephen Wright going into this outing. Kansas City has never faced him before. That's usually an advantage for the starting pitcher. And to me, Ian Kennedy, the other starter in this matchup for the Kansas City Royals, he's had a solid year. There's nothing to complain about, especially for a guy that's been, shuttled from team to team. He's had injury issues. He's had trouble sticking on rotations over the last few years with the assortment of teams he's been on, Ian Kennedy. But the concern that I have for him in this start is that he's allowed 3 home runs in his last start against the New York Yankees. And when I see a pitcher giving up that kind of hard contact, especially to a Yankees lineup that hasn't exactly been hitting on all cylinders this season, that's a real concern for me against this Boston team. They've been hitting their share of home runs, extra base hits. So if Kennedy is getting hit hard, giving up hard contact to opposing hitters, this may be not the kind of profile that fits very well against the way the Boston Red Sox collectively as a team are hitting the baseball right now. So, you get Boston at, again, a near even money price. We've talked about it to death this week, but it's true. Boston's the team in good form. Boston's the team that's hitting. Boston's the team that's getting good bullpen. Boston's the team with momentum. Kansas City's not the team with any of those things on their side right now. Obviously their bullpen's still solid, but rarely has their bullpen been in a position lately to close out a game. They've been trailing a lot going into the latter innings. Wouldn't surprise me to see that here again. I think Boston, slight underdog price in the daytime game of this day-night doubleheader between the Red Sox and Royals, probably provides value for Wednesday.
Okay, Ian Cameron, thanks so much. Talk to you again very soon.